We want to thank the Rotary Club of Louisville and all of you Rotarians for hosting this year's Thanksgiving luncheon. This has become quite an annual event, and it's only fitting as two international organizations dedicated to the service of others. It is only right and proper that we come together at this time of year to give thanks for all of the blessings we enjoy, as well as the opportunities to be of service. We have just witnessed and heard about all the wonderful things that Rotary is doing. Allow me a moment to tell you about the impact of our club and our members have upon this community. In club year 2016-17, under the most able leadership of Betsy Holton, our club members contributed more than 500 hours of service and more than $105,000 in support of our community. These projects focus on changing the world one child and one community at a time. During our club year 2017-18, we have hoped to double the number of service hours and continue to contribute more than $100,000 to our community. We would like to recognize the 2017-18 Kiwanis Club officers and directors, as well as those serving on the boards of the Kiwanis Club of Louisville Foundation, the Louisville Deaf Oral School Foundation, and the Heiser Hearing Institute. Would you please stand? Thank you. We would also like to recognize, pardon me, our own Mark Garman, past governor and our current lieutenant governor of the Kentucky-Tennessee District of Kiwanis, as well as our own Jim Garrett. Did Jim make it? I saw him last night at the game and he wasn't sure. Jim, are you here? Well, Jim is a past lieutenant governor of the Kentucky-Tennessee District. So, Mark, thank you very much. As far as announcements, our next meeting is Thursday, November the 30th at Audubon Country Club. It's a dinner meeting, starts at 6 o'clock, and we look forward to a very special and exciting speaker. We also have 3 Christmas programs that we're excited to be part of again this year. Kiwanis's Christmas is for Kids charity event will be held on Sunday, December 10th at the Walmart located at 11,901 Standiford Plaza, 40229. The event will start at 8:30 a.m. and wraps up around noon. We will be taking 550 children shopping. That is the most ever and an increase of 10% over last year. Thank you. Now, here comes the hook. We need many volunteers this year, and we would especially like to invite our Rotarian friends to join us. This is an especially impactful event. It is most likely that you will get much more out of it than you put in. So please, see one of our Kiwanis members if you'd like to join us on Sunday, December the 10th. Our Heiser Hearing Institute Christmas program will be held on December the 14th at the Heiser Hearing and Language Academy. The program will begin at 12 noon, and again this year we will be providing presents for the children and along with a pizza party. And finally, the Salvation Army Red Kettle program has begun for 2017. We'll be volunteering at the Kroger stores at Hubbard's Lane in St. Matthews and on Bardstown Road in the Highlands. In addition, the Southern High Key Club will be volunteering at the Kroger at Jefferson Mall. The dates for the St. Matthews and Highland locations are the 2nd, the 9th, and the 16th from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. If you're interested in volunteering, please see Ralph Behringer. And finally, holiday poinsettias. Ray Glass is doing it again this year, and we would like to invite anybody who wants a wonderful deal on poinsettias to see Ray. And now it is my pleasure, I think, to introduce Jim Etkin and Kay Manning for this year's Rotary Kiwanis Ode.
Glad you're here.
Which side do you want?
I want to be on the right. You be on the left. Hi, y'all. Boos are not called for.
Yeah, that didn't sound very inviting.
We're going to make this really short. And I'll tell you the reason. Because Leland Woodmansee is no longer the president of the club, which rhymes with chimpanzee, for those of you that don't know Leland's rhyming thing. But also because when I heard who the speaker was, I said, I'd like to hear everything he has to say and sing and everything else, because he's one of my favorite people. So you all I can tell you is you're in for a treat if you have never heard Harry Pickens before. I don't want to introduce him before the introducer does, but it's great to see you, Harry.
He's a pretty good piano player, too.
Yep, exactly. How about Ode to the Rotary Kiwanis Club 2017? Are you ready for this? We have fun every year when it comes to Thanksgiving. To meet with Rotarians makes our life worth living.
Our challenge is friendly. We try to outring you. We've heard you all sing. We sure can't outsing you.
So here's to your officers. They serve for no money. This ode is for them. It's meant to be funny. That's pretty good, wasn't it? Yeah, okay. Well, no applause yet.
That's probably the funniest part so far.
Later on. Do I do the next one?
You do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your treasurer knows business. He's no Green Bay Packerman, a Bellarmine grad. You all know Joe Ackerman. That's pretty good. Go ahead.
Your VP is Mike Shackelford, who's well known and respected. He's smart and looks good, and that's why he's respected. Selected. He's respected too. I said that twice.
You get the next one. You get the next one.
Okay. John Jennings, your secretary, a benefit advisor. His role in the Rotary has made him much wiser.
He helps our community. He's left quite a marker. Your president-elect is Tark's own Barry Barker. Get that? See, it's marker and Barker. That's how that works.
That's better than Parker, like the bus, you know.
We're happy to meet at the end of November, and we're glad that your president is my friend Tony Kemper. See, it's November. It was pronounced that way on purpose. So
that was a stretch. That was a stretch, Jim. That was a big stretch.
You go ahead.
Okay, and now a few words about our Kiwanis leaders. He's Mr. Kiwanis. That's Mr. Mark Garman. He's our club advisor. We all think he's charming.
She retired from the Y. She could be canning or tanning, but she's Kiwanis' own treasurer and a poet, Kay Manning.
Our secretary is a guy who's fun to be with. He makes us all smile, and his name is Jeff Smith.
Our president-elect is a very smart Perskin. He's very... I said Perskin. He's very high-tech, and he is Michael Erskine.
I'm sorry, Mike. Our president, Brian Taylor, looks quite presidential. His office insures both auto and residential. Thanks for the challenge to beat you again. Let the ringing begin, all you women and men.
Our clubs are both good and known for their service. We hope because we're better, we don't make you nervous.
That was really quite clever. It's one I'll remember, and I'll stop there. What a treat we have today with today's speaker. To introduce Harry Pickens. Another pleasure of mine in the holiday spirit is to introduce Tom Williams, member of Stoll, King, and Ogden, past president of the Louisville Bar Association, and co-chair of Partnership for Compassionate Louisville. Tom will introduce today's speaker.
Thank you, Tony. Wish I had a rhyme for the introduction. I really blew my chance. But yeah, it's a real pleasure to introduce Harry. I've worked with Harry. He's been my coach, and Harry has a unique genius. I think that's the only way I can really describe it. First time I ever heard, or one of the early memories I had of Harry was at a conference, and they had speakers talking about contemplation. It was the Merton Institute, and Harry was there to musically summarize everything that was discussed. And I was just absolutely floored by the music. And I had a real sense that he captured the essence of what was trying to be communicated much better than anyone could with words on that occasion. Later, I heard that Harry, if you send him pictures, I don't know if he still does this, but if you send him pictures, he'll musically capture the essence of a person. And I was in the doghouse and needed to raise my stock with my wife, so I did that one Valentine's Day. And my only regret on that is I can't ever top that. He did a wonderful CD for her, kind of capturing Sarah's essence. And then he did something similar in 2013 for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. They asked Harry to create some original music for that event. And if you get a chance to Google Harry Pickens and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, you'll get a chance to listen to that. It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever heard, and really a highlight of that visit by the Dalai Lama. But you know, the thing I've learned about being around Harry is that he is as talented with words as he is with music. And I think the best way to describe Harry is he has a huge heart. I mean, he is one of the most loving, caring people that I've ever met, but often people with a huge heart don't have a mind to back it up, unfortunately. And Harry has a mind that follows his heart, but that is absolutely brilliant and growing. And then he has these wonderful hands that can translate the essence of something into music, and hands that build a more peaceful world, and hands that connect others. Harry is really a bridge builder. And I really couldn't think of anybody better to speak today than Harry Pickens on this eve of Thanksgiving. And I do want to give a little bit from his bio, because Harry Pickens, if you didn't know him before today in my introduction, he's a modern-day Renaissance man. He's an award-winning performing artist, an educator, a composer, author, workshop facilitator, and life transformation coach. And he is here to speak today on his topic, in tune with gratitude, from Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. Welcome, Harry Pickens.
Thank you, Tom, for that generous, kind, loving introduction. Thank you, Jim, for your moment of hilarity. Happy day before Thanksgiving. Good morning. I am deeply grateful to be here with all of you, because I believe in what the Rotarians and Kiwanis believe, in that service, like Muhammad Ali said, is the rent we pay for life on earth. And I believe that our lives come into their highest expression when we connect our capacity to serve others. So thank you all for the work that you do now, the work that you've done in the past, the work that will continue to be doing, because it's the most important thing there is. So give yourselves a hand, please. So today's topic is from Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving, because I think it's great to get together once a year around the table and eat turkey and, eat potatoes and pumpkin pie and argue about politics with your relatives and all those kinds of things that we do on Thanksgiving. At the same time, I think celebrating the idea of Thanksgiving once a year is, while good, it's only a glimpse of what's possible. I believe that we are, as human beings, engineered for gratitude. I started with What's a Wonderful World because that song, which many of you know from the classic Louis Armstrong, and by the way, Jim, I don't sing. You wouldn't want me to sing. If I sang, you'd all run out of this office very, very quickly. But Louis Armstrong immortalized it, and that song is about creating a habit of Thanksgiving and looking at every blue sky and recognizing the beauty of that blue sky, looking at I have a magnificent maple tree in my backyard. And I don't know if you've noticed this beautiful autumn. We've had an amazingly beautiful autumn. It's more colorful than many years. And there's about a 10-day window where that tree is flecked with gold. And you look up at the tree, and it's a huge tree, and every single leaf is glowing gold. And I remember the day it started, that whole color started, and then it rained a couple of days, and I knew there's about a 10-day window of beauty in that tree. And I remember standing in my backyard at about day 5 or 6, realizing, in 4 or 5 days, all those gold leaves are going to be gone. That moment of glorious autumn magnificence will have dissolved into winter. And so in that moment, I chose to take that moment and look up at that beautiful maple tree and cherish it, because now the tree is barren and the gold is gone, but the gold is still here. So I think it's very important that we do what the song says, and we really honor every precious, unrepeatable miracle of this life that we have, because we also know that in this world that's full of so much tragedy and suffering, we never know when that last breath will come. We never know. We might have been blessed to live many, many decades of life, or we might be just 18 or 19 or 20, but no next breath is never guaranteed. So I think it's important that we ground ourselves in that Thanksgiving. So I don't know about you, but in my life, I've had some really high moments and some really low moments. And sometimes I've learned the most from the low moments. So I'm going to share with you a couple of stories. I have 3 stories, 2 songs, and 1 message about transforming Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. So one more thing about that, I believe if you want to become a master at anything, if you want to become a master musician and you only practice 1 day a year, it's going to take you a long time to get good. But if you practice every single day, maybe if you're lucky, after 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, you'll begin to glimpse mastery. So I want to invite us to explore the same thing in relationship to Thanksgiving. So I think there's 3 keys to transforming Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. One of them is to remember the good. The second is to focus on the good. The third is to choose the good. And I want to tell you 3 little vignettes from my life that help me understand those 3 things. So the first, I used to, young man in the blue shirt, how old are you? You're 18, okay, beautiful, thank you. I remember when I was 18, it's a long time ago, but when I was 18, I wanted more than anything else to be a world-class musician and get to travel all over the world and play and everything, but I only had one little problem. That one little problem was 7 days before a performance, I would stop sleeping. I'd toss and turn all night. 4 days before a performance, all the food I took down came back up the way it went down. Throw up 4 days. 2 days before a performance, anybody know some of your doctors in here, you know the term tachycardia? Rapid heartbeat, 160, 180 beats a minute for 24 hours, So I figured, as a professional musician, 1 gig a week with no sleep, no food, and a heartbeat 180 beats a minute, I'd be dead in 6 months. So I knew I needed to do something about that problem. And so I explored all sorts of things, brain science and psychology and mental rehearsal and hypnosis and sports psychology or whatever. But I found the key that changed everything. Because what was happening in my brain, every time I sat down at the piano to perform, I got Dolby surround sound movies of every single time I screwed up in the past. Anybody know that feeling? You got something to do, and all you can think of is the times you messed up, right? Well, that would happen. I'd sit at the piano, and all these memories would flood into my consciousness. But then I discovered a secret. And it didn't turn everything around immediately, but it changed everything. And what I did is I started noticing every time me and the piano got along really well. So it might have been in a moment of rehearsal, I'm working on a passage, and there might have been 30 seconds when it really worked well. There might have been a performance where there was a glimpse, there was a moment or 2 minutes of success and connection and joy. And I started a journal where I wrote down these good moments. And over a period of 5 years or so, I captured several hundred of these moments. And I mean, right now, I can go back. And I would every day, at the end of the day, I'd look at my 4 or 5, I'd rehearse them in my mind until I could remember that good feeling of confidence and joy and connection with the piano. And the strangest thing happened. After a few months of doing that, when I sat down at the piano, I started getting those pictures in my mind instead of the ones where I screwed up. I started reprogramming, repatterning my mind to recall the good, to remember the good. And so right now I can, like 1981, Douglas College, I can remember sitting and playing Bud Powell's Celia in front of the group. And, or in 1984, I can remember being in a club in Metz, France, in the basement club. And I mean, right now, I can remember a couple of days ago at Beargrass Christian Church, I played, my eyes was on this. Right now, when I think of playing the piano, I have hundreds, thousands of positive memories. And so when I go there the next time, guess what shows up? All of those. So I learned through that adversity to remember the good. Now there's some folks here who are 18, there's some folks here who might even be 80. However old we are, we have a repertoire in our mind of beautiful moments in our lives and lousy moments in our lives. Which ones do we focus on? Where's your mind day to day, moment to moment, hour to hour? When you sit down with your spouse or your friends or your family, where's your thinking? Are you thinking about the thing they did last week that got on your last nerve? Are you remembering the thing that they did that brought you joy and connection? So the first step in transforming Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving is remember the good. Everybody repeat after me. I choose to remember the good. Yeah, think about that for a moment. So second, and again, these are some dark moments that turned bright. So about 23 years ago, I woke up one Friday morning, and I was actually picking up the phone to register for graduate classes. And I picked the phone up, and my heart stopped, literally. It started again eventually, but my heart stopped. It started to sputter in my chest. Atrial fibrillation, age 34. Went to Norton Hospital, Audubon, went there for the weekend, got out, recovered. But for months afterwards, about every day, 5 or 6 or 7, 8 times during the day, my heart would skip a beat. Anybody ever experienced that? Heart skip a beat? Kind of scary, right? So I realized after this had gone on for a few weeks, I was not an atrial fib anymore. I was okay, I had a clean bill of health, but a few times a day, my heart would skip a beat. I remember looking it up, and I found that, your heart beats in 24 hours about 100,000 times. Every 24 hours, every day, your heart, without your controlling it, starting it, or doing anything about it, does that. Everybody put your finger here. Make sure you got a pulse. Just feel it for a second. If you don't, I'll call 911 for you. But that miraculous heart of yours is doing its work 100,000 times every day. And I realized that I was spending all day waiting for the 10 times out of those 100,000 that my heart would skip a beat. I was constantly anticipating what would go wrong. And so my mind, once again, was constantly on the problem, not the solution. And when I realized my heart beat 100,000 times every 24 hours, I said, oh my God, that means that's 99,990 times for me to be grateful for. What are you taking for granted in your life right now? What is the equivalent for you of 99,990 heartbeats every 24 hours that you don't even pay attention to because it's working? And to what degree do you focus on that 10 times out of 100,000 that things aren't? I would invite you that learning to focus on the good is the second step from transforming Thanksgiving to Thanksgiving. So everybody say, I choose to focus on the good. So just for a moment, reflect on what's good in your life right now. What is good in your life? What are the blessings that you can be thankful for in this moment? And what if you focus on those not only one day a year, but every hour of every day? So third principle, this is choosing the good. So another adversity of mine that I experienced is I wasn't always in this kind of manly, beautiful, muscular, youthful shape. Okay? Jim laughs at that. So, in fact, 15 years ago, I weighed 50 pounds less than I do right now. I'll show you a picture of it. I weighed 187 pounds at 6'9". That's pretty slender. That came as a consequence of three things. Number one, I lived in a house in San Diego that had black mold, toxic mold. I became very, very ill. Number two, I had a traumatic brain injury because being 6'9" is an occupational hazard when the world's built for five people 5'7". You have to duck. I mean, I duck probably about 40 or 50 times a day. Literally. Now, going through, I mean, here, this is an exception, but most of the world is not built for me, and I know you're laughing, but over a period of 15 years, hitting my head once or twice a year, to the degree that I had slurred speech for 15 or 20 minutes afterwards, I developed post-concussive trauma. Traumatic brain injury, right? So I had that going on. I also had some endocrine system and immune issues, chronic fatigue. So I had these three things going on that ultimately led to me weighing 187 pounds. And right after I moved out of the house that had the bad mold, I was really weak and tired and didn't know, this is in San Diego before I moved to Louisville. And there was one day, I was actually living in an extended stay hotel because I didn't have a place to live after I moved out of this house that had the mold. And one day I came from the doctors, and I walked in the hotel room, and this will date it. I had on the desk a desktop computer, okay? Now, you guys don't even know what a desktop computer is, but it's about this big, you know, and it's not a laptop, it's a desktop computer. And I had next to that computer a box of business cards, a shoebox of business cards. And my goal that day was to take the cards out and put the names and addresses in my computer database. You know, you've all done that. But this particular day when I walked in the room, I was so tired and so depressed and so broken that as I looked at the computer on the desk, I knew I couldn't do that simple task. And so I don't know if you've ever had a moment in your life where you just thought you were just going to give up. Because I had lost what I thought was me. I'd lost my intelligence, my thinking capacity, my physical vitality, my creativity. I couldn't play the piano very well. There was a time in August 1999 where it would take me 10 minutes to find a C major chord on the piano. Okay? So I was in a pretty difficult state. And in that moment, I just sat on the edge of the bed and I felt broken. And I asked Creator, God, Spirit, I said, okay, help me, because I don't know what to do. Lost everything I thought I had. I can't even put these doggone names and addresses in my computer. Help. And if you ever asked for help and got an answer? You ever asked for help and got an answer, even one you didn't expect? So what happened, in that moment, the answer came to me. Just sit on the edge of the bed, take the box, take every card, and just send love to the person on this card. And I did. It took about 90 minutes. Every person I just said, just would send them love, whatever. And I'd love to say that 90 minutes later I woke up healed, but I wasn't. Nothing was different on the outside. My body wasn't different. But I learned something incredibly important that has become the most significant life lesson I've ever learned. And it's the lesson that Viktor Frankl wrote about in Man's Search for Meaning. You know Viktor Frankl? Yeah. He was in a concentration camp. And he noticed that there were two kinds of folks in the concentration, two kinds of prisoners. There were the people who everybody knew they were going to die. They were all going to the gas chamber, but there was a group of, and many people used that adversity and they just gave up. They capitulated. Their entire life became despair. But there was another group of folks in the concentration camp that Frankl noticed, that even in that moment of their most horrible suffering, and their seemingly inevitable decline and death, what did they do? They reached over to comfort somebody else. They shared a nugget of food with somebody else. They encouraged other people. And Frankl said he understood after that experience, which he was also in, that you can take everything from a human being except one thing, their capacity to choose. That's all we have. And so in that moment of my brokenness with the business cards in the shoebox, what I recognized is even though everything that I thought I was had been taken away from me, my creativity, my intelligence, my capacity to create, to do, to play, whatever, inside me, I still had a capacity to choose love, to choose life, to choose service, to choose possibility. And so what I invite you is remember love, remember the good, focus on the good, choose the good. Everybody say, I choose the good. Because see, this is the power that human beings have that we take for granted. And often we don't actualize this power except in moments of adversity or brokenness or challenge, but it's there all the time. In every moment, we can choose. Do I choose to expand or contract? Do I choose fear or love? Do I choose to that person who I'm sitting across from my table who doesn't look like me, doesn't think like me, doesn't have the same political or religious beliefs in me? In that moment, can I choose to expand and be curious and open? Or do I choose to close down? In an interaction with my spouse or my parents or my children or my friends, can I choose in this moment to, as Stephen Covey said, seek more to understand than be understood? In that seeming moment of difficulty, when you're driving traffic and the person, you know, that crazy person cuts you off, do you choose to scream at him, or do you choose to take a breath? And as you're living life day by day by day, do you choose gratitude? Do you choose to recognize that it is a wonderful world, even with all the suffering and all the terror and all the horror and all the war? Because every breath, every heartbeat, every moment is a gift. We didn't give it to ourselves, we won't take it away, but it's a gift. So summarizing, I'm going to play a little bit more. But I believe that Thanksgiving Day can be a gateway to thanks living every day. I believe that we do that as we actualize our basic human capacity to remember the good moments, remember those experiences in your life that brought you joy and possibility and opened your heart, to focus on the good. Don't be like me thinking about the 10 heartbeats that skipped instead of the 99,990 that worked. Right? And then to choose. To remember that our ultimate capacity, William James, great psychologist, said, human beings have the capacity to change their lives by changing their attitudes of mind. So I invite you from this moment forward to make a commitment to make Thanksgiving, thanks living every single moment of every day. So I'm going to close by playing the piece that Tom mentioned before that I was gifted with the opportunity to write for the Dalai Lama. And this piece is called The Awakening Heart. It's dedicated to this idea. You know, the longest 18 inches a human being will ever travel is from here to here, right? Because what we know about the brain, our brain is a brilliant problem-solving mechanism. But the problem with a problem-solving mechanism is it has no morality, no ethics, no spirituality, no judgment. So we can use this brilliant brain to come up with, just like the guy in Las Vegas did, with brilliant ways to murder more people. We can use this brain to come up with bombs. We can use this brain to hurt others. But if we drop into the heart is that part of our intelligence that is always focusing on the good of the whole. So when we allow the heart to guide the brain, then we can serve on our highest levels. So when our heart awakens, we awaken to compassion, to ethics, to morality, to doing the right thing. And then we can use this brilliant brain for what it's designed to solve problems, but to solve the right problems. It's called The Awakening Heart. As you listen to it, I invite you not to think about me playing it, but just go into your own heart and think about how you may remember, focus, choose, love, gratitude, service in whatever way that serves you. And thank you very much. Here's The Awakening Heart. I want you to hold your applause until I'm done, if you don't mind, just so you could, yeah, I just let the music soak into you.
That was soul-stirring. Thank you so much, Harry. And I can't help but think in listening to that students from Western High School, you have been given a great gift today. Just as you're going to be gifting others through your clothes drive, this is one of the most spectacular lessons that you'll have your entire senior year. And it didn't happen in a classroom, right? So keep your minds and your eyes and ears open to those lessons that will transform your lives that never happen in a classroom or a lecture hall. Harry, that was marvelous. Would you take a couple of questions or comments, please? Would love opportunity. Anyone, I just would open the floor if you have questions or thoughts. I would have one, a topic that is so important, and I was thinking about our younger visitors today. Brokenness does not mean conclusion. Brokenness does not mean the end. And I really appreciated you touching upon that. It's an uncomfortable but very important topic.
Oh yeah, I mean, the nature of the human experience in my life, and my understanding is that joy and suffering are part of what you get when you sign up to be a human being. But how you respond to whatever you face determines who you become as a human being. You know, and very often, you know, we have the idea that, oh, well, if I just do everything right, you know, whether that's obey a certain set of principles or guidelines or go to the right school, that everything will be okay. But the truth is, tragedy, difficulty, brokenness, adversity can come to anybody at any time. But we always have the opportunity, and I think what adversity teaches us to do is to dig deep beyond the surface into that part of ourselves that can choose. Because like Viktor Frankl said, I think the capacity to choose how we see, how we be, how we respond is the ultimate superpower, you know?
Alice?
Harry, thank you for being with us today. What a blessing to us.
Thank you.
I understand in your counseling practice that you use a technique called havening, and I'm just very curious about it, and it seems
Okay,
a
yeah,
very
I can-
strange technique, but I'm interested what it is.
Did you say strange?
I did.
Well, yeah, it's very, well, okay, so I'll try to condense the story in about 30 seconds. Yeah, the work that I do is I help people learn how to run their brains and how to rewire their brains. Because the most astonishing discovery of our century is the fact that we literally, we used to think that our brains were sort of hardwired, and that is, once you were 25 years or so, you had a certain set of neural pathways, and that's it. Now, what we've discovered in the last 10 or 20 years with lots of research in neuropsychology is that every thought, feeling, relationship, experience literally remolds the structure and function of your brain. Research in meditative practices and indicates that if you learn the basic mindfulness meditative practices, which source in Buddhism but also are across spiritual traditions, after 8 weeks of 20 minutes a day, when we do a brain scan and take a look at your brain, we will see more development in the frontal lobe. We actually see new structures that allow for less reactivity, more response capacity, greater capacity to choose at a more intelligent level. So we know that neuroplasticity is the term. How many of you heard that term? Okay, the brain is constantly molding itself. So what havening is, a guy named Dr. Ronald Rudin, an internist out of New York, was very intrigued and wanted to help his patients who suffered from physical illnesses that had an emotional component, right? Because very often, many physical aspects of dis-ease or originate in an emotional trauma or stress. And so he spent several years working to understand the neurobiology of how trauma gets encoded and fixed in the brain. And from that, he developed these sets of techniques called havening, stands for self-haven. The original name for havening was amygdala depotentiation technique. Amygdala depotentiation, which means a delinking of the amygdala fight-flight response from memory. So for example, you're in a car accident when you're 35 years old, and then at age 70, you still get really anxious every time you drive on the highway. What happened is you had that car accident, your amygdala brain, your fight-flight brain, in order to keep you safe, said, we're going to remember anything like that forever. So so what havening does, and ADT, is it releases that pattern. Or, you know, when you're 16 years old, you fall in love with a guy or a girl with red hair and freckles, and they do you wrong. So for the rest of your life, whenever you see somebody with red hair and freckles, you don't like them, right? That's a perfect example of traumatic encoding, where your amygdala fight-flight brain says it's not safe to to have that happen again. So what havening does, in a step-by-step, I can tell you more later, a very simple technique using touch, attention, and imagination to de-link the emotional encoding of those memories. And so as a result, it's been used with veterans who've been PTSD, people who've experienced child abuse, rape, et cetera, as well as people who have small t traumas. So suppose you have a business goal you want to accomplish and you can't do it. I worked with a guy just this weekend, fear of public speaking. His fear of public speaking went back to an experience that he had when he was in high school band. Right? And it literally in 15 minutes we were able to completely clear that, so now he can speak in public again. So very often you have those internal emotional blocks that are connected to that. So long explanation. You can go to haveninglouisville.com and learn more about it. Okay.
Harry, thank you, and happy Thanksgiving from
you,
the
sir.
Rotary and Kiwanis Clubs.
Thank you,
We're
sir.
so grateful.